Good day, everybody. It's Eric Coffin. This is Monday, May 4th, 2020. I'm here with Tom Ullrich from Aston Bay, BAY.V. Tom was one of the presenters at the virtual Metal Investors Forum on Thursday. I just wanted to do sort of a follow-up call with him and maybe go into a bit more detail on a couple of things he talked about on Thursday, and also, you know, maybe if he was getting questions or feedback, we deal with some of that here. You put out some soil results right before the MIF presentation, Tom. I just wanted to jump to those in a minute, but before we do that, have you got any sense of where things stand in terms of when you guys can get back there, what the restrictions are? I know Virginia was pretty tough when it comes to the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, that's true. You know, at the moment, actually, the governor of Virginia, when he initiated those restrictions, he extended them to the beginning of June, which is fairly extensive time frame. Now, of course, we'll see when these restrictions come off. I really can't guess when that might happen. But I think in general, in the world in general, we're seeing a little more sanity coming. And I think these things will come off, probably sooner rather than later.
Okay. And you've got, you did, I believe, 10 holes. You're in the process of logging and cutting those. That stuff will go into the lab, so there should be some news over the next 4 to 6 weeks anyway coming out of the drilling. But I wanted today to just kind of focus on the soils. And one other thing I did want to ask you about, I don't know if you guys have had a chance yet, especially with the lockdown going into effect. The ground that you picked up a couple of months ago, that's sort of in the historic gold belt, if you will, historic area that people know about that hasn't been active for over 100 years. Were you guys able to poke around over there yet at all, or have you had a chance to get in there?
Really just very preliminary work. Obviously, Don and our consultant geologist, who's been working with Don since the 90s, they've looked at all this stuff for the past couple of decades. That's why we picked it up. So, whether I go and poke around, how much I would add, that's perhaps up for debate. But certainly these guys know what they wanted, and we've picked that up. What we were hoping to do, before all the troubles, we were hoping to actually perhaps take our drill rig while we had it up in Virginia, and perhaps poke a few holes, shallow holes, over on a couple of these brownfields prospects. Because back in the 1850s, they only mined the high grade. We know a lot of these deposits have mineralized halos around them. Hale down in South Carolina is the classic example where you have historic mining. All the lower grade mineralized halos, they were just ignored. There was nothing they could do with them in the 1800s. But if you go in there, with that modern exploration, modern methods, it's possible there could be a significant mineralized halo around some of those historic prospects, and it's possible to develop some significant ounces that way. That's what Remarco did with Hale, and it's being mined by Oceana right now.
And if you were to go into that area, I don't know that any of the mines in that trend, that sort of northeasterly trend, I don't know how big they were sort of back in the day. This was over 150 years ago, after all. If you were to go in there now, what would you see? Is there anything to see? Is everything completely buried, or is there a bit of outcrop here and there?
There's not much outcrop anywhere here,
Right.
But you can see some of the old workings, and I would say it's your typical brownfield site. You might see some old structures, but access is great for us. We are on timberland. It's owned by the forestry company, so we can go where we want to go. Obviously, we're looking at using some of the modern techniques like LiDAR to really make sure we pinpoint where old shafts, old workings are. It's always difficult working with historic data, as far as getting the coordinates right and the actual positions right. But certainly using the modern free LiDAR, even the free LiDAR we get from the state of Virginia, it can be really helpful for getting us in there.
Okay, and on the not much outcrop subject, we can use that as a segue. If you want to pull that map up that you were showing us all a little bit earlier, the soil map.
Sure, I'm going to do a screen share here. This is our Buckingham property, our main property that we've been drilling in Central Virginia. You can see here's our this dashed dot line is our property boundary. There's a few little cutouts, obviously, where we perhaps be interested in picking up some additional land, and of course we're in discussions for that. But really what I want to focus on, for people who aren't used to these kinds of maps, all these little dots you see here, these are soil sample stations. So we've taken over 1,300 soil samples and had them analyzed. And these the larger dots you see, the larger the dot, the brighter the color, essentially the higher the assay that we've received. And just to give you a feel for what these numbers are, the red is obviously particularly important. So there we're looking at up to 1.75 grams per ton gold in a soil sample. That's an extremely high soil value. So you can see there's some trends here. This is the map that doesn't have any of the interpreted anomalies on here. You can just, you get a bunch of geologists in a room, and they're all going to interpret things differently. But let's just zoom in here on, take a look at our area where we've been drilling. And so this is here, this area right in here. This is the area that we've been drilling. The smaller dots here are actual drill hole locations, and you can see these little lines are the traces of the drill holes. So all of these drill holes have been drilled to the southwest. The blue dots are the 2018 drilling from the previous operator, cut 3 holes in there. The green dots are from our 2019 drilling, where we put those results out last late spring and early summer. And these red dots, these small red dots, are our 2020 drilling from March of this year in our somewhat abbreviated program. So this is that area where we have the gold vein at the surface. It's about just about 100 meters in strike length. Very high grade gold in the quartz veins at the surface. To the northwest here, this is the area where we're starting to see in the drill holes, we're seeing that more disseminated mineralization in this area here. It's not the thin high grade gold veins. And by thin, I'm talking about 2 meters, and high grade, about an ounce to up to 2 ounces in some of these. So about, say, 28 grams per ton. The disseminated mineralization that we're seeing in this area up here in the 2019 drill hole, we hit 2 zones, each were about 20 meters in intercept length of about 2 grams per ton. So for a total of about 40 meters of 2 grams per ton up here. And in some of these new holes that that we drilled this March, the characteristics of what we were seeing were very similar. So we were hoping to see some similar grades and thicknesses as well.
Okay, it looks like you've opened things up a bit too. I mean, you've obviously you've taken it out at 100 meters or so in each direction. I look at it, and it looks like you've gone, well, certainly that northern set of 3 holes, you've obviously gone down dip a little bit on that one as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And so with these step backs, essentially that allows us to look deeper. We're stepping back and drilling at an angle or an inclination, and that allows us to see deeper down the structures. And so we are seeing it in all drill holes. I think one of the things to note in these holes, we did do a technique called oriented drill core. Again, this area of Virginia, there's almost no outcrop, so we have a very difficult time determining geologic trends, geologic structures, because there's no outcrops at the surface. But if you can drill underneath the very heavy weathering here, using this oriented technique, we're actually able to get some structural measurements, strikes and dips for people who are familiar with it. And we're actually able to see where some of these structures are going. The vein itself, as we had a very good idea that it was fairly northwest striking and roughly vertical, essentially upright. So it dips steeply, essentially almost vertical. The zones of disseminated mineralization, we never really had a good feel for what their orientation was, but with the results of this year, we're able to say that they actually dip somewhat moderately. It was quite a bit of a surprise, actually. They dip moderately off to the east and northeast here. So as you can see, some of these areas here, for example, where we've hit the disseminated mineralization, and we know that we hit grade in the subsurface. If you take that up-dip direction, roughly west or southwest, you can see these higher grade soil intercepts here may be the surface expression of what we're hitting down at depth in our drill holes over here.
And your holes aren't that long, so if you're hitting it, if you look at those big red dots, on that line, if the big red dot furthest to the left, if you will, that one, yeah, mm-hmm. It would have to be, it would be pretty shallow to be coming up to the bedrock surface there, right? I mean, you're not looking at much of a dip.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very moderate dip, certainly less than 45 degrees, and so we see it daylight here. Obviously, we don't know what happens on the other side, whether there's we don't expect things are a simple plane. It's quite possible. This could be essentially a fold structure. So we make daylight here and then come back down in the subsurface this way. We don't know. Obviously, some of our lines here, we've ended in some very high values here, here, right. Here. We need to do a bit more work here to see which way these anomalies might go. But yeah, it's very good news, actually. Certainly, in this preliminary interpretation, I should stress that. But to have a fairly thick body of disseminated mineralization that essentially more flatline than it is straight up and down, it's definitely a better situation.
Yeah, I mean that sort of very gentle dip on a bulk tonnage. That's exactly what you're looking for if you're looking with the disseminated stuff or something. It's open pit. Now, can you throw the interpretation of the anomalies on and we'll sort of maybe explain to us what's what, I guess.
Let's see if we can make this work. There we go. So
now you've got a couple of standouts both in the strength, but also just in the geographic location. You've got that more or less where your cursor is now. You have that northeastern trending one that ends on that 1.7 gram one. That looks like it's maybe a cross structure or whatever. Yeah. Something in sort of the opposite structural direction to Buckingham. And those lines are 200 meters apart?
Yeah, these ones, these here, from here to here is 400 meters. Okay. So, so this is about 1 kilometer in length right now. And obviously it ends in, this line ends in the second highest value we got on the sample. And obviously we need to do some more work up in this direction here. This is very a surprise. Obviously there's no outcrop here. It's certainly a pleasant surprise to have something like that to work with and to continue to examine.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a large anomaly, a kilometer long. Obviously, some infill would be nice, but even maybe even more important to stretch it out. Now, are you still thinking about doing some IP or some other type of geophysics, or do you think
Yeah.
basically geochem is just the way to go?
Well, certainly the combination of the two is the way to go. Ideal situation, we would come back to this area where we know we have intersected both the vein mineralization and the disseminated mineralization in the subsurface, run a few IP lines over top of this. With the IP, you get the resistivity, which the contrast should show our quartz veins, and the chargeability should show very well these disseminated zones. We're seeing disseminated pyrite and sulfides really seem to be very well constrained to what we think are the gold mineralized zones in our drilling here as well. So that one technique, a few lines, could really help us to really pin down where where these structures are, or sort of where these mineralized bodies are, and it should help us with that targeting our drill hole. And of course, the thing about soils is, there's no guarantee that they work. So anytime you can get a secondary method to help you with your drill targeting, it's definitely worth it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty impressive set of anomalies here, and of course, you've already generated some great drill holes on Buckingham, and from the sounds of things, it doesn't sound like we're going to be terribly disappointed by what's coming next. I mean, you're hitting basically the same kind of stuff. I mean, it's gold property, so you don't know until it comes back from the lab, but
sure.
But it essentially looks the same as the stuff that was good last time. So I don't think it's too much of a leap of faith to assume you're going to get some good drill holes. And I expect you're right. By the time you get these assays back, you'll probably be able to go back there. I would think the restrictions are pretty much going to be off by the end of this month. And as importantly, you've got these new trends that the soil's picked up. A lot of those, anyone looking at this map, you can see a lot of these trends, some of them quite long, obviously have not been tested by drilling. The drilling's been focused on a pretty small area so far, but there's a lot of target just on Buckingham, and I think it deserves reiterating that Buckingham is, in fact, a new discovery. The guys that had the project before you, also obviously connected to Don, they popped 3 or 4 holes into it, but those were discovery holes. This thing was never known about before that. Those of you that have listened to my recent interviews will notice that there's a bit of a pattern here where a lot of the companies I follow are companies working on new discoveries. It's not a coincidence, I can assure you. Those are really where the fun is in the exploration business, in my opinion. And you've obviously got one here at Aston Bay. So, I mean, looking forward a little bit, let's say the next 2, 3, 4 months, you're going to want to go back, do some more drilling, and maybe get some IP done here, and then maybe your guys get a chance to kick around on the other trend that you picked up, the historic trend, if you will.
Absolutely. That is the plan. You can be my VPX if you like. That's exactly what we're going to do. And obviously I'm extremely excited about some of what we found here. These anomalies, these soil samples. You can see how discrete some of them are. It just goes to show you, this isn't just a smear of coming from some of these high grade stuff here. You can see you go from essentially ore grade soil, if you want to use that term, to just barely detectable in 25 or 50 meters. This is an undisturbed area. We think these anomalies are real. Don Taylor is extremely excited about what we found here, but of course he's even more excited about the trend.
Right.
He's quite convinced. For both gold and base metals, but for right now, certainly for gold, he thinks this is an undiscovered, yet to be discovered belt here, and we're excited to go out and test some of the other properties we have outside of this Buckingham discovery.
Yeah, it's a very impressive project. I mean, things It took time. I mean, it took time to accumulate the land position. Although, as you mentioned earlier, the one of the advantages of Virginia, although it can be a bit of a trial to nail down properties because you're essentially negotiating with a landowner, the forestry company in this case. Once you've got it, it's fee simple land, so you can go in and just. I mean, there's no permitting, there's no dragged out process to be able to go in and get access. Once you've got the deal with the forestry company, you can just go in and, theoretically drill the next day. You got a lot of great target here, and it's high grade gold target. I think we're in a market that's looking for new high grade gold stories, which I think Aston Bay is. I mean, there's bad luck to kind of have the COVID-19 restrictions drop on you right when you were getting ready to start cutting core and shipping samples, but that's still going to get done in due course. Those holes will be coming in the next few weeks. Obviously they look like the first set of drill holes. The first set of drill holes were great. Anyone I know that looked at them was very impressed at the collection of intercepts you had in what was, after all, only like a 900-meter drill program. It's a tiny drill program. You've already you tripled that now, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we've doubled the number of drill holes from, with this program, or tripled, I guess that's the right way to look at it, and extended the long strike at depth. So we're pretty happy. But it's a good start. We'd love to continue. We're just getting ready to start stepping out, but we're stepping out more seriously. But we'll get there in a month or so, and hope to get to look at some of these other targets as well.
Okay. Well, the downside for Tom with things going slowly is that there hasn't been that much of a move in the share price. But I guess if you're on the other side of the ledger, that's a plus, not a minus. It hasn't moved yet. It's still trading in the same range. I think this is another really good high grade discovery story. It just needs a bit of news flow, which we should be getting in 3 or 4 weeks. Company name is Aston Bay, BAY on the venture. Very, very strong technical team, great set of projects. I think Aston Bay is probably going to have its day in the sun fairly soon here, as soon as we start seeing some real news flow pick up. I'm glad that you gave the presentation at the virtual MIF last week, and thanks for coming by again today, Tom, to walk us through some of these trends.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Always good to talk.